Welcome to Season 2 of the Pull Hook Golf Podcast. Here's your hosts, Matt Cook and Bobby Brown. Welcome back, everybody, to Pull Hook Golf, the podcast. I'm Matt Cook. This is Bobby Brown. And my God, are we back and better than ever. Bobby has shots in his back that just made him more powerful. Basically, performance-enhancing drugs. He's probably going to get drug tested this week by the PGA Tour. Oh, boy. Yeah. Can caddies be drug tested, by the way?
No, they don't even test. They don't even test play. I talked to an agent last week. We were talking about somebody who hasn't played in a while. I go, I smell a rat. He goes, bro, I think that's the last thing on the table for them right now is to worry about, especially with weed being legalized and that kind of stuff. So
there you
I think
go.
I think they got their plates full there in Ponte Vedra.
Yeah, for sure. But Bobby, I mean, we're going to start off with the Bobby Brown injury update, but then we're going to dive into the Cadence Houston Open. We're going to recap that. We got a lot on the table today. We got the upcoming RSM Classic, which sounds like one of the viruses going around, the RSV. But then we've got Tommy Fleetwood comes out of nowhere, wins for the first time in 3 years, and it happens to be a repeat. We'll talk about that. Charles Schwab Cup recap, which happened in Phoenix, where I am at. And, man, was that kind of a fun golf tournament. I love that golf course, too, Phoenix Country Club. Then we've got Nelly Korda. So we're going to even hit on the ladies here. That sounded weird, but we're going to talk about the ladies here. And Nelly Korda heading back to number one after a rough year. And, is Greg Norman really out at LIV Golf? There's been some conflicting reports there. The only one that's conflicting, though, is coming from LIV Golf themselves. So that'll be interesting to see. And then, at the end, we've got just an absolute damn gem tonight. We've got Pat Perez, who went on Son of A Butch podcast with Claude Harmon, and man, just some great things that were said. So we're going to talk about that at the very end here. So definitely stay tuned. But Bobby, why don't you give us just a quick update? How's the L4 and L5? How are we doing?
Better. Well, the history on the L4 and the L5 for me goes back to Tour Championship with Dustin in 2012 on a Friday morning when I was getting ready for a round, and I was sitting on the end of my bed and I was just going to put my socks on, and my club glove that I travel with had my socks in there. And, it's funny, before I reached down to it, I'm like, man, this is a long reach. And my back had been feeling sore. Well, that's September. You're caddying all year long. Dustin's bag weighed fucking 15 golf balls, 40 gloves. It weighed fucking 60 pounds every single week. But when you're making fucking $500,000 a year, you suck it up, right? So it's funny, before I bent over, I'm like, man, I shouldn't bend over. And as soon as I bent over, pop, I just heard a big pop. And I literally, man, I've told you the story on episodes before. I tried to go and caddy that day. I couldn't get in the courtesy car. I couldn't walk. I was in the most pain that I've ever been in my life. He literally pulled me off the golf course because I was so far behind after 9 holes on a Friday, and brought a buddy in to caddy the rest of the week. And I had a trainer come over that works with a lot of players, and he tried to stretch me out. And he basically told me, he goes, "You're fucked. You didn't herniate these things because you'd probably be dead if you herniated, but you definitely fucked them up pretty good." So, guess what was next week? Ryder Cup, right?
Oh.
Right. So I'm like, I was talking to Bones and LaCava, and they're like, "You don't miss a Ryder Cup. You can suck it up for a Ryder Cup." And I remember I flew over private with Dustin and a couple other players to Medina, and I couldn't even sit on the seat. Anybody that's herniated an L4 or L5 knows what I'm talking about. And I made this comment when we talked about Zalatoris going down to Delaware this year. Remember when I told you, I'm like, man, I saw the way he got in that golf cart. He is not coming back and playing anytime soon, because I'm a been there, done that guy. So, that plane flight to the Ryder Cup just fucked it up even more. And then I got there, and Jeff Sluman actually has had some back problems. He was an assistant captain. He was waiting for me in the lobby, and it was, 11:30 at night. He sent me down to a chiropractor, down the street from the Westin we were staying at from the team hotel. And I swear to God, I'll go on record saying this chiropractor fucked me up even more with all his little chiropractic moves. And
it's a dangerous play, the chiropractor.
Man, I didn't even know. I'm just taking this guy's advice. The good news is he brought over some killer bottles of wine, and his wife's a doctor, and some pain pills. And I think Lori was with me. I think we made a baby that night, one of those nights. Pretty sure I didn't have to do any work. It was awesome. Well, those days are long gone now. But what a stroll down memory lane. So anyways, fast forward, I'm on this 2-year thing now. Oh, well, let me back up. So I don't make the Ryder Cup. I leave on a Friday. I'm in so much pain. Oof. Man, you know what the bad thing is? When you got to poop, you can't even sit on the toilet, right?
Oh,
you can't.
That's
you have to
just
lay,
dirty pool right there.
I know, it's so bad. You're laying on your stomach the whole time. I'm doing hot patches, cold patches.
How do you poop laying on your stomach?
Well, you shoot it straight up. No. Well, when you got to poop, you got to poop. But for me, it would be like hands on the toilet bowl and dive bomb.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're just hoping it lands in the right spot, huh?
Well, it didn't even matter. It didn't even matter because at that point, I'm like, just take me now, God. So I went home. I got a call. I went home on Friday, got a plane home on Friday with Lori, and we have a really good back doctor in Charleston, South Carolina. His name's Don Johnson. He runs a Southeastern Spine Institute.
Don Johnson from Miami Vice?
No, he's not that good looking as Don Johnson, but he's probably richer than that Don Johnson. Back business is booming right now. So he ran, you go in for the MRI, which is sketch. You're in this little cubicle. You think you're flying to Mars or to the moon or something like that. And I was having anxiety, and he was just looking at me. I couldn't sit down. I was standing up. He's like, man, I've seen a lot of bad backs, but you look like you're in a lot of pain. And I'm like, Don, you have no idea. And he goes, well, here it is. I mean, you herniated these L4 and L5s really bad. You almost ruptured them. And I'm like, can you do anything? And he's like, well, first thing I want to do is I'm going to give you that shot. I'm going to give you the shot, the big steroid injection in the back. He goes, that's going to loosen you up, and at least you're going to be a little bit more comfortable. And then you're going to do a lot of, excuse me, core stuff, PT, core, and that kind of stuff, stretching, which I do religiously on a daily basis, pretty much anyways. So, man, I'll tell you what, that shot, they numbed me up pretty good. So I didn't even feel it going in, but it's crazy. Even walking to the car 30 minutes after getting that shot, I'm like, oh, I was loopy as shit, but I'm like, oh, I feel so much better. So I just got on the program and took care of it. And so I went back in and saw him about a week later. And he's like, yeah, it looks a little bit better. He's like, here's the deal with these things, Bob. They're never going to heal, right? They're never going to heal the way they were. So now it's on you to stay with the program, keep doing your stretching, keep doing your core work, keep doing your yoga ball work, and you're on damage control. And he was telling me about the surgeries. Fred Couples had them. What are they called? There's some kind of surgeries. I'm at a loss for. Well, they take something from one part of your body and they inject it into your spine to help it regrow. And at that time, they weren't covered by.
Oh, is that the
stem cell surgery? He goes and he starts throwing these stats. He's like, Bob, I've done 27 of them and I'm 27-0. He goes, but the bad news is they're not covered by health insurance. It's going to cost $27,000 to $52,000 out of pocket. That's your decision to make. And, I'm like, well, I don't really, I'm starting to feel better, and let's just
no pressure, Troy. Bobby needs 50K.
Yeah. Well, Jesus Christ, no shit. But I mean, this is so before Troy. We're talking exactly 10 years ago. So my deal is that I've been taking good care of myself, as you know. Haven't been drinking for a while now. I'm eating really good. I'm doing a lot of stretching. But the fact is, Matt, is that I'm one bad step away on a golf course or a stair or something like that, where it all goes, and it happens to me about every year. I take a bad step. I'll tell you where I'm an idiot is. We have carpet down our stairs up to the upstairs, and I just, little old me bailing down those stairs, not even looking where I'm stepping because I'm not smart, and I'll catch the bottom of those stairs, right, with my socks, and I'll slip. And it'll jar me real quick, and it's and it just flares up every couple of years, and that's what happened to me early in the week.
Have you ever seen those infomercials with like that chair that goes along the wall and it like carries you up and then around? Yeah, we need to get you one of those senior citizen chairs.
I saw that. Didn't you see when Dustin had the mystery fall down the stairs? Did that. Somebody did that and put him in one of those chairs and put it on social media. It was funny, and it was it was hilarious. So anyways, that's what it was. I take a bad step down the stairs, I jar it, I'm laying on the ground in pain, and the rest is history. And I don't caddy in Mexico. Of course, he plays great. He finishes third, which my guy is one of those guys. I don't want to go into any details, but he takes care of me very well. And he takes care of me better than Brendan Steele was right up there too. He takes care of me financially very well, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But as you know, when I talked to you last week, and I was still in bad shape.
You were. We talked for about 5 minutes, and you made me cringe about 3 to 5 times.
This because you can't stand in the right position. You're always trying to lean on something, and I definitely couldn't sit down. I couldn't sit down for a while. You're always laying on your back. We have hardwood floors. My God, I got a 5 and a 9-year-old. That should tell you something right there. They're all over Daddy when he's at home. So I went in and saw Don again, and I got another shot. And
Wait, is that 27 to 50 grand still on the table for that stem cell replacement or whatever it is, injections?
Well, I still don't want to spend the money because it was
like I said, Troy, a lot of pressure, but we got to get Bobby that 50K.
Can I tell you something? I already got one mommy at home, man. I don't need another one. And I got one Lori, and I got one Lori at home too. Anyways, fast forward to now, every day it started feeling a little bit better and a little bit better. I started moving around, started walking around the block through the neighborhood and that kind of stuff with the boys when they were on their bike. And I just started doing a lot of stretching. And I have a process that I do in the morning before a round, and I have a process that I do after the round too. And I try and book, Courtyard Marriott's or some kind of a Marriott property that has a bike on it, and I'll get on the bike for about 2 miles in the morning before a round, and just get everything stretched out. A lot of ball work, man, a lot of funky stretching and that kind of stuff. Simple stuff that you can do at home, but you have to be disciplined and you have to do it, and you have to do it the right way. So I made it down to Savannah last weekend. We had the big Adidas, my son's Adidas Savannah Soccer Cup, which was pretty cool because our guys never won a game. Hadn't won a game all year long. And listen to this. We got smoked in the first 2 games. And we got a few good players, right? And it's just like, why are these kids not? They just get so dejected when they get down 2-0 or 3-0 or 4-0, right? So they all got there a little early before. The coach doesn't even know I did this. Before the 3rd game, right? And they looked good in the 2nd game. They were right in it, and then they got smoked at the end. So they're all standing around me and Lori and my littlest Pat, and then we're kind of joking around, and I'm joking around with them, and I'm like, I'm gonna fucking give them a Bobby Brown caddy motivational, half Nick Saban, half Tom Brady, man in the arena, pep talk. So I go to the spiel. I go, I just need 3 minutes of your guys' time. I go, I've been watching I didn't say any F-bombs, but I want to say, I've been watching every fucking one of these games, and you guys are fucking good, but you guys don't believe in yourself. So I start going through this Nick Saban thing. I don't know if you've ever said it. I condensed it a little bit because one of my favorite Nick Saban things is he says, ultimately in life, you have 5 choices, don't you? You can be bad at something, you can be good at something, you can be great at something, you can be excellent, or you can be elite. I left the bad part out because I didn't want to open up with something negative with kids. So I went through this whole spiel that Saban said on how you become. What's the difference? A super freaky talented guy can be good, but he'll never be elite unless he puts in the time and the effort and he believes in himself that he's better than everybody else. So I went into that spiel, and these kids are on me, right? They're locked on me. And we got this one kid, number 9, his name's Ben, and he is a fucking beast. He should score 3 or 4 goals. I call him out. I go, B, what are you doing down there in the corner like that? Get open. There is nobody in this league that can play with you. I've been watching you for 2 years. And he's shaking his head. And then I go into the man in the arena, which probably flew right over their head, Son of a bitch if they didn't win 6-2 and Ben went for 4 of them. My son didn't give up a goal. My son did not give up a goal in the second half. And the big thing is with those little kids is when they panic in front of the goal, they don't learn how to clear it like I'm some soccer star, right? They don't learn how to clear out. Nothing bad comes from the sidelines, right? Just fucking kick it out of bounds. So I was up on my feet moving around at the soccer games, yelling and screaming at them to be aggressive. And man, it's just so awesome when you see kids get their heads kicked in and all of a sudden they start jiving together and they start believing, and you can feel the electricity. And I get that sometimes on the golf course with guys I work for when they're having a really good day, and you can just everything's synced up and gelling. So didn't qualify for the big one, but they got out of there with the W. And
wow, how about that after the Bobby Brown?
I gave him the Nick Saban, Tom Brady combo thing. So I was telling Troy the story, and he goes, "Oh, you're that fucking overbearing parent." And he pissed me off when I said that. I go, "I'm a motivational parent, is what I am. That's what I do. I motivate." He goes, "Oh, you do you?" And I go, "Listen, you worry about Baylor going over 91.5 for $10 tonight, and I'll handle the fucking cocksucker." So, anyways, I'm at Sea Island. I'm actually sitting right now. I feel good. I've rekindled the flame with my boyfriend, Micah, SH Kim's caddy. He's up there drinking his Tito's. He's 3 beers deep, but he's not getting obnoxious. But I think he was playing Grateful Dead. Yeah, cheers to you. I walked out of the room. 9 o'clock at night, he's playing Grateful Dead. What the fuck's going on? Isn't Duke playing somebody tonight in Kansas? Isn't there a big Duke Kansas game tonight?
I don't know. I haven't. Here's the thing. When it's this early, I have a tough time following college basketball. And like, that's my sport. I love basketball. I was actually good at it. But man, this early on, I just have a tough time like getting into it. And I don't know. It's just something. Now, we've gone from your injury update. And here's the thing, folks. If you listen to last week's episode, which was me as a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, and there was somebody on the plane that I told you about last week that sat next to me, and just like his nose was flooded. He brought a roll of toilet paper. He's coughing everywhere. Just an absolute disaster. I got the KN95 mask on. I'm like, I hope this thing fucking works. Guess what? 5 days later, I have the absolute flu. I thought it was COVID at first because everybody's been getting COVID around me. And sure enough, take a test. I've never tested positive for the damn thing. And I was so flustered. It ends up being the flu. I finally started to break late this afternoon, and Bobby texts me, and I'm like, I'm a gamer, Bobby. We're going to do this thing. So my fiance, cheers to her, Alyssa, made me a hot toddy, because she used to bartend 2 nights a week in New York City. That's how we met. I brought her across the bar. I just had to have her. So cheers to her for making me a hot toddy. And you know what? This Bushwood front nine.
I've been hearing a lot about the Bushwood.
It's so good, Bobby.
Can I go into a little Bushwood story that I heard this morning? And I'm sure whoever owns that company is going to. So we played Troy's best friend that we play with, who was also a 2-time champion here at Sea Island, is a dude named Robert Streb. He's been on tour for quite a while. He's won twice here. And he is like a self-proclaimed, is it bourbon or is it whiskey, Bushwood? First of all,
it's a whiskey brand because right? There's bourbon and then there's rye. Both are whiskey. They're just different types.
Okay. So I go, hey, this podcast I do, my man Matt's been propping Bushwood and that kind of stuff. He goes, I've had it before. And I go, how is it? He goes, it's good, man. It's really good. It's great. Good. And I think he said it's great value for the dollar is what he said, because he was telling me the story. He made a hole in one at my Acoba on number 8. And he's a super generous guy. So all the guys in the group, he bought them like a bottle of some Camus and that kind of stuff. And he was looking for a bourbon, whiskey, whatever it's called, because I'm not an expert, but he was looking for something called Eagle Rare, which I guess is a pretty high dollar one, but he said he balked on it because it's totally overpriced down here in Sea Island. But props to Bushwood, because Robert Streb is an expert. I hear him talk about all this stuff.
There you go.
And he gave Bushwood some props. So there you go, Bushwoods.
Yeah, Bushwood. Well, there's some Bushwood in this hot toddy, and it is absolutely delicious. So thanks again, Alyssa. But I just broke with the flu, and I'm just, I'm going to fight through it. You probably hear it in my voice a little bit, but I'm struggling through it. We're going to be just fine, because today's episode is just something of goddamn beauty. And we'll dive into that even more as we go along today.
Into the good shit fast.
I really want to. I want to so badly just jump ahead, but we can't do it. Got to talk about the Cadence Bank Houston Open recap, which, by the way, Bobby, without you, I just dropped in some absolute gems. I had no fear whatsoever. I'm like, who's going to bounce back? Tony Finau. Brushed off the rust, and he's going to play great this week. I was like, I'm not claiming he's going to win, but he's going to play great. And then I had Scottie Scheffler, because Scottie always plays well in Texas. He had a bad first day, and then he actually had a bad third round too. But how about this? I throw in, because I do the top 10 bets, so I'll pick a winner. So like Scottie Scheffler, had a small amount on him to win. But him and Tony, I had both of them in the top 10. And how about Scottie Scheffler holding out from the bunker on 18 to just get into a tie for 10th?
Actually, you didn't watch. Well, that's a good call. You're right about the holding out and cashing a ticket, but you didn't watch the leaderboard, because he actually ended up finishing tied for 9th. You had cushion there. Somebody
Oh
made a
my
bogey late.
God.
Somebody
No
made a bogey
way.
late. Yeah,
Oh
you
my
sound like
gosh. I
Floyd.
was watching that so tightly too. And then I did the math and I'm like, okay, he cannot lose out of the top 10.
Good
So
job.
how about that? Yeah.
Scotty Scheffler and Tony Finau in that field for a top 10. What do you make, $10 to make a bet 10 to make $1 or something
No,
like
no,
that?
no, no. Both of
Really?
them were shoot, I forget the exact odds, but it was basically like a plus 110.
Oh, that is good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is good. They're the
I mean, it was
cream of,
basically like a even money and basically throw in $10, you win
yeah,
$10.
sure. That's not easy to
And
do. It's
Tony
golf, right?
Tony Finau, wire to wire. I mean,
I was just talking, we were just talking to Micah about it, and we're like, how is this guy only ranked 14th in the world right now? You
doesn't
feel
make
like
sense. It's gonna come.
don't you feel like he's storming on trying to be like the number one player in the world right now? Possibly,
Actually,
that's you can see that a little bit.
he's trending in that direction, right?
Yeah,
Everybody,
yeah,
we've talked about his talent for so long, and now he's
yeah.
figured out how to win, which is
Yes, he's
pretty cool to see because it's an acquired talent. Unless you just come out of the gates like Tiger Woods and you know how to win immediately because you don't know anything else. Tony Finau knew how to lose for a long
yeah.
time. Like Tony
Well,
Finau
yeah,
finished second how many freaking times over the
yeah,
past like 5
yeah,
years? Like this
yeah,
guy has been people don't realize how many times this guy has finished second place. And
yeah,
now he's figured out how to win. And what was just pure class was this week when he got the big lead and it was windy and it was cold and it was a tough golf track. Like watching that golf course, I was pretty impressed with Memorial Park Golf Course for a Muni. Like that's a
cool.
pretty great golf club there in Texas, but and in Houston too. So with Finau, all of a sudden, like he carried himself throughout each round and never let that lead get too low. Like he
Yeah,
just kind of hung in there and he was making birdies. Shoot, I mean, he had 4 birdies, I think, on the if I'm not mistaken. I'm a little delusional from the past couple days, but the he had 4 birdies on the front 9 on Sunday.
yeah. He did,
And
did
then
he?
he had his bogeys on the back 9 because he's
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna make a double bogey.
Well, I will tell you, I told you my little prep on Memorial. A lot of guys won't go play Memorial Park because I think he finished at 18 under, which is or 16 under, which is phenomenal. I've been over that golf course and I worked for Sung Jae there, and he swore he would never go back because the green complexes you can't tell on
Mm-hmm.
TV, but kooky as they are kooky as shit. They're borderline like unfair. There's a couple holes out there. Like I
That
literally
15th.
yeah, well, 9 is a par 3. I don't know if they changed the green the last couple of years, but we saw 2 players in our group knock it on 9. There's a creek that runs in front of it, and it's so slow from the ball literally stopped for a second, 15 or 18 feet on the green, and then it trickled back into the water, and that was just enough to scare people away. So it is a kind of a famous muni. It's a famous muni there. It's in a gigantic park. Um, Astros just won the World. Astros just got it done in the
Ah,
World
the
Series. So
cheaters
another,
got it again.
well, they're
I
old.
don't know how they're cheating now, but they're cheating.
What's my favorite Tony Finau? Remember he throws out that line about losing. He goes, "When you lose, every time that you're a loser, you're training yourself to win or something like that." So he's a great family man. I rip on him a little bit because I feel like with his dancing is a little kind of look at me, but maybe that's just his real personality. And
He's
then I
just a
really,
happy, positive dude,
but I
Bobby.
didn't like the whole thing when his wife started making the little walk up sport coats. Did you ever see those videos where when he was
I
on that
did.
cold streak where he was getting out of his courtesy car and he put on the sport coat with the shorts and the blazers or the Jays or something like that? And I'm like, oh my God,
Well,
don't tell me this.
then they started doing the reels. They started doing some dances together, like
Yeah,
choreographed dances. Like,
I love him
but
again.
that's just the Instagram culture, right? I mean, everybody's
Yeah,
trying to get their views and everything. We keep
for
it
sure.
pretty mundane, but at the end of the day, Tony Finau has figured out how to win, so it's like, all right, he's going to be creeping his way, and that was a pretty strong field. I mean, you look at
Yeah,
the
it's a
guys
good
that were
field.
playing, I was like, wow, this is surprising for a fall event to
Yeah,
see this number of guys that are
yeah,
in the top 50 and big names that are just outside of the top 50. I mean, Justin Rose had a good week. He's got some new irons.
yeah.
Did you see those though? Those irons that he had made?
I did. I
Those things are
did.
slick, Bobby.
He's been a ghost for like 3 years, and he had a shit he had a shit Sunday. He's a tough bag. A bunch of my buddies have worked for him in the past. He's a caddy beater upper for sure. But you know what I wanted to point out? This is back to back weeks where guys you know, there's an old caddy player saying, what's the most dangerous thing on the PGA Tour? It's a 5-shot lead or a 6-shot lead swinging in Sunday, because you get hung up in no man's land, right? You don't naturally, human instinct is you don't want to stay aggressive and make a mistake, and you put it into Sammy safety mode.
Yep.
And then you really start making mistakes, and bogeys can multiply real fast when you get out of your game plan. That's 2 weeks in a row we had guys fucking hammer it out good. Russell Henley, obviously, in Mayakoba is had it going, look, you know, he's impressive when the iron game is going, and he's a sick putter and he's a good driver of the golf ball, and he's, you know, you can see that look, right, in Russell Henley's face. You ever see that look, man? I've never seen anything.
It's just dead focus. It's like,
Yes,
I am taking this shot by shot, and I am locked in. And that's what I saw out of Finau too, that it was just like, even though he made some bogeys on the back nine, there was just no relent out of him whatsoever. He was just locked in.
Yeah, stayed aggressive. Hey, shout out to the guy who finished second, Tyson Alexander, 34 years old, Buddy Alexander's son, who was the head coach of Florida Golf forever. Matt Every's been touting me on this Tyson Alexander literally since he was like 19 or 20 years old, saying he was some kind of player, but a 34-year-old rookie just finished second. And, you know, these guys, all these new class reshuffle after this week. So his number's going to move up, shuffling to number 2 or 3, which is going to get him possibly like into the couple of those $20 million tournaments. Possible look at Scottsdale, and a possible look at better chance for really Riviera, because they do, it's an invitational Tigers tournament, right? So top 60 or 70 from last year's FedEx Cup, and then top current. So he looks like he should be on that. Another rookie played really good, Ben Taylor. Didn't have a very good Sunday. I picked this young kid in Bermuda, this named Alex Smalley. Remember that? He finished 4th, man. God, I just think this kid's gonna win. He's always popping up and right around top 20s and top 25s and that kind of stuff.
Well, let's jump into the RSM Classic with that. Do you think he is going to play well there?
Well, I will say this: it always seems like a young guy that hasn't done any good before. The RSM is known for first-time winners, isn't it?
The Gooch won last year.
Yes, Gooch, Streb won. Streb got his first win here. He's won twice. Who else? Tyler Duncan, his rookie year, won here a few years back. And I think there's been some others that it's just one of those things. Patrick Rogers had a chance one year and he had never won before. So it's one of those courses that you just feel like, you know, the deal is we play, there's 2 courses here, right? So we play 3 rounds on the Seaside course, which is behind you, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then we play 1 on the Plantation course, which is the course that you got to get, right? So you got to shoot, man, I almost want to say minimum 4, but I'm going to say minimum 3 because it's super short. Greens are pure. Fairways are soft. Troy went from 9 here last year, opening round on the Plantation course, and was I think tied for the lead out the first day, but there'll be like 3 or 4 9-unders, there'll be 3 or 4 8-unders, a bunch of 7s and a bunch of 6s, and then you go over to the Seaside and it's a big boy golf course, Seaside, right?
I think I've only played Seaside, but on the simulator, because when I used to sell golf simulators, we had Sea Island.
Yeah. Of course, it's legendary. It's legendary in this area. Big college events here, obviously this tournament, but it is going to be fucking freezing cold again. It's going to be in the high 30s, low 40s early in the morning.
No way.
Yeah, and you got that north wind kicks, and you can see from the picture behind you, everybody can see you are exposed as shit out there. There's no shelter. The Plantation, you get a little shelter because it's more tree line, right? But this one is wide open, and you know you are literally, when it's that cold, like Troy Merritt is the king of chipping. This sounds crazy, but he's the king of chipping in 6 irons from 143 to 148 yards against a left to right north wind. So
love that. That's crafty right there.
It is crafty, total field player, and God knows he's on form. He looked, I don't want to jinx it, but he looked. We played 9 holes on the Plantation this morning, and my man is fucking.
Can I tell you? Can I tell you that I won the bet on him in the top 10 at Mayakoba?
Did you really? You must have got value for the dollar on that because he was not on form.
I think he was plus
30.
No, he was like
11 to 1.
He was I think he was plus 1100. I'll have to check.
Yeah, well, no, that makes sense. That's a good call. That's a good pick on your part. It's funny. I told him, I'm like, oh, we had to. You bring that substitute caddy in, his buddy Zach, who's caddied for him there before. They're really good buddies, and he is a member of the PGA. He's an assistant pro somewhere, and he's big in junior golf in Boise, Idaho. And I'm like, man, I was like, man, I'm going to have to get back to basics, because if Zach can jockey you to a T3, I'm just going to have to do what you really want me to do. And that is just to sit there and shut the fuck up and carry the bag and watch you play. But I noticed today he was controlling his golf ball. He went and hit some balls after the round too. So I know he's feeling it a little bit. He's controlling his draws. He's controlling his cuts. And,
but Mayakoba's a good golf course for him. I mean, I kept watching the shot, like the 2 or 3D cast, and I mean the way he was playing that golf course was pretty straightforward. It was like just put it in the fairway, hit it to the center of the green, and try to make a putt.
Yeah, so I'm going to do this. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to pick Troy Merrick to have a big week. He's one of my guys to beat this week, and I'm
on the same page.
Yeah, and I am also going to pick his best friend, who's a 2-time winner here, who looked fantastic this morning too, very comfortable. Why wouldn't you? Robert Streb, who you don't find him with a search warrant for 12 or 15 weeks out of the year, but 2 or 3 weeks out of the year, he seems to get it done, and this is right up his alley. So those are
whiskey connoisseur, though, that Robert Streb.
Whiskey connoisseur. Yeah. Whiskey connoisseur. So I like Streb a little bit too. Kiz is always tough here, Kevin Kisner. You'd think the angle would be to bet these Sea Island guys, because
you got Cooch. Cooch lives on Sea Island.
Yes. Kisner does. Patton Kazire does. Brian Harmon does. There's
Brian Harmon's the favorite for the week.
He should be. He's a baller, man. When he's not winning Kentucky Derbies at 5'2", he's fucking making millions of dollars.
I was talking about that last week on my own. I'm like, Bobby loves this Brian Harmon.
He's my second favorite golfer, because with all the Dustin Johnsons and the Brooks Koepkas and these Henrik Stenson fucking figuring out athletes out there, this guy is 5'6", $135, soaking wet lefty that just fucking golfs, right? And it's so fun. It's so fun to watch. I don't want to say in front of Troy, we get paired with him all the time, but I'm like, God, this guy's so fucking fun to watch golf. He's just defying all odds of what golfers should be these days. So,
and he's a lefty too. It's fun.
My point is you would think that these Sea Island guys are like the guys to beat, but I've been talking to a couple of them in the years past, and I'm like, man, how do you guys Sea Island guys not play and just destroy this place every year? And they look at me and they're like, you think we ever play out there? We don't even play out there very much. We go and practice with our instructors, or we go down the road to Federica and we'll play a random money game out here and that kind of stuff. But it's not like they're out there 3 or 4 times a week, because it's a famous course and they get a lot of play. So
that makes a lot of sense, actually. I didn't even put that together, that like it would just be clogged up all the time.
Yeah, it'd be like
it's a resort course. That's what it is.
Well, it is a resort course, and they have a not really sick lodge here, and it's the same company that has the Pebble Beach Lodge. So I guess you could say it's just like guys that, if you were a pro that lived in Monterey or something like that, like, oh, you've got to be the guy to beat Pebble. It's like, how can I ever fucking get on a Pebble? They're booked from 7 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. So I like Streb and Merritt. I like his.
Top 10s. Top 10s?
I do like 10. I do like top 10s for these.
Those have become my favorite bets, by the way. That's your best value, folks. That even if you drop down to like a T25, do you know they have T40s on FanDuel?
Do they?
FanDuel runs some ads on our podcast, and here's the thing. FanDuel, you got top 40, so why don't you give a couple top 40s here, because like that Alex Smalley, that could be a decent one.
I like him to top 25. I'll give him as a top 25. And I always like value. I always like value for the dollar, right? So, and I've been propping my guy from Daniel Island, the big thoroughbred Kyle Westmoreland. I'm going to go with Kyle Westmoreland. Finish top 8.
Dude, for top 40, he's like plus 1,000, I think. I got to look that one up. But
he got a sponsors into Houston last week and grinded it out on the cut and ended up finishing like 27th. So I like Kyle Westmoreland to top 40. And
I almost grabbed my phone.
And you can see he lives in South Carolina. This golf course is kind of like where he plays at Daniel Island Club, except Daniel Island Club's a lot more tree line. But I just think some of these Southern guys that live in the South play these South golf courses, and it makes perfect sense to me after watching so much golf the last 15 or 20 years. So I like Kyle Westmoreland as a nice little, $10 wager. Yeah,
I mean, a T40 is a solid. I mean, basically you're making the cut and then you're just playing decent on the weekend, right?
Yeah, basically. So I'm gonna limit my picks to that. I mean, I'm always rooting for Siwoo a little bit.
Who do you think's winning though? Who do you got as your main guy? Because I always throw Wood in. You know, it goes back to horse betting. It's like you got to throw in the top one that you think is going to win.
I think Streb's going to win this week.
Wow, like it.
Yeah. How's that for a ballsy call?
That is a ballsy call.
Yeah, two-time champion here. Just looks super comfortable today. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm the worst. If we went over the year and you took all my picks and everybody bet opposite of what I said, they are going to show a problem. We do know that.
And so far, if people took my picks, they are winning a lot of money. They're winning a lot of money. I had Rory McIlroy winning when he won. Then we had last week with the entire Tony Finau. Wow, in Mayakoba, we had Troy Merritt top 10. We had
Finau missed the cut.
Finau missed the cut. That was the big one because I think that was like a plus 550 right there for him to miss the cut. Right. Then if we hop to the following week, we had Tony Finau top 10, Scotty Scheffler top 10. Like those were the only two that I threw out there. So
you know what I need you to do?
We're doing well, Bobby.
I need you to go a big gigantic pair of stones and pick me somebody that you like I picked. That's like would be 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 to 1.
I don't know the Corn Ferry guys like you. You take all the ballsy picks. I'm following your lead on those.
Well, I keep picking the same guys, Eric Barnes and Kyle Westmoreland. They got to come in sooner or later.
Well, you didn't pick Eric Barnes for this one, but he is in the field.
Yeah, he is in the field. Yeah, fuck, everybody's in the field. Jesus Christ, I went all the way down to Sung Yul No. That's why I know. Because Mr. Finau WD today with an injury.
He did. No, that's him winning a golf tournament and saying,
no,
I'm
he
not.
Really got hurt. You know how he got hurt? Because there's so much fucking cash in that wallet. He threw his back out.
That's exactly right. There is no injury.
Yeah, he's at home with the kids organizing his Jordans. And
absolutely, figuring out what the next Instagram reel is going to be. What kind of dance?
Well, I always said it when a guy wins a golf tournament because it doesn't happen that much, even though he's won like 4 of the last 29 or 30. That you should take the next week off because it's so hard to win out here, right, man? You should just go with your family or your loved ones and just reminisce,
just enjoy
what just happened.
Reflect.
But most of them don't because our schedule is so crazy. And the fact is, after you win, you're usually kind of in the mix early in the week, the next week, because you have so much confidence and you're always playing great.
Well, you can always grab a hot streak. And then, I mean, we saw it with Finau in the playoffs. He won 2 back to back. So, I mean, he is somebody who could certainly do that. But right now, at this time of year, take a break there, Tony. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy that victory. That was a tough 4 days. And for you to win by that margin, fantastic work there. I'm really impressed. How about Tommy Fleetwood? We go overseas. Jeez. Now, not only overseas. I mean, we're in South Africa last week at Gary Players Course over there in Sun City, South Africa. And Tommy Fleetwood wins for the first time in 3 years. And guess what? It is a repeat, back-to-back win for him at that same tournament because he hadn't been there in the past 2 years. So he wins the same tournament. But, man, was it good to see Tommy Fleetwood as, as Jesus Christ out there with his beard and his hair. And, like, he was crying out there. I mean, I get it. Like, but is there somebody who should be on LIV Golf more than Tommy Fleetwood right now?
Well, I don't know how to answer that, to tell you the truth.
He's a European Tour player because it's the European Tour feel. Like those guys, they're going to be in Europe for several weeks out of the year, and they're going to be playing. I mean, their first tournament back apparently is Adelaide, which is in Australia. So you're going to have that European feel to LIV Golf before it makes its way back over to the States. And that's where I'm like, somebody like Tommy Fleetwood, this dude's won, 6 times over on the European Tour, has never won in the U.S.
Well, this was his first win in like 3 years. He was really off his game for 2.5, 3 years. Like, what happened to Tommy?
But it never looked bad. That's the thing.
No, yeah. And can I tell you something about him? He's like genuinely one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
He looks like it. I'm glad to hear that.
He's so genuine. He's just so nice to everybody. He's always happy. He's funny. He's always he always says hello to people and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? When all the fans are walking by and that kind of stuff, he is always goes out of his way to sign for kids, sign autographs for kids and that kind of stuff. So he is one of the good guys. And his caddy is one of the greatest guys ever. This guy named Finau, Ian Finnis, if I said that properly, and he is from Europe also. And he is about 6'8". I told you I call him Shrek because he's just gigantic. He weighs about 265 pounds.
You don't see that often out there.
No, you don't.
You're one of the tallest guys out there.
The golf bag looks like a Louis Vuitton purse on his back. You know, he could just pick it up with like one finger and put it over his shoulder and that kind of stuff. So it was good. It was good to see him going. They actually had their tour championship, the DP Tour Championship.
This upcoming week.
Yeah. They're small field teeing off in Tucson. So Rory's obviously over there playing. We'll talk about Rory's comments a little bit later when we get into all the dirt on LIV, and we got plenty of dirt. We got plenty of dirt to talk about tonight, Matt.
Now,
we can't skip Nelly Korda, though.
You can't skip Nelly Korda, but before we even get to Nelly, I got to talk about Phoenix Country Club. Great spot with the Charles Schwab Cup. I mean, this is why the FedEx Cup is the way that it is, because you once again had somebody who won the season long, which was Stephen Elker. And then you had somebody who won the Tour Championship, which was Padraig Harrington. Padraig Harrington went off. 27 under.
Where did Elker even finish? Did he finish second to him?
He finished third.
He finished third.
Bogey free as well, by the way.
Right. Gotcha. Well, I'll tell you what I know about Phoenix Country Club is before our year starts, before we go to Hawaii to start our season, I meet up over there with Troy and his coach, Steve Dalby, who teaches at Phoenix Country Club. And you know what? You already know this. You know what Phoenix Country Club is known for? The best greens in Arizona, right?
That they are.
They are tour greens. They are tour speed all the time. They're ripping at 13, pressing 14 off of some of those slopes sometimes. So, and it's just, you got to kind of plot your way around that golf course. You played there before. You can't really overpower it anywhere. It's a mixed bag off the tees. So good. What a story for Stephen Elker. I think he made over $7 million fucking dollars this year.
$7.44 million. You know what his best year was on the PGA Tour?
250 or 260, I read.
Wow, 261, 901 was his best year in 2014. Wow. And he said, he's like, we had a young family at the time, and there were plenty of conversations to where it's like, you should go get a different job between him and his wife. And he ended up sticking it out. Obviously got to 50 years old. And I mean, what a story. I mean, it makes me, I'm 38 now, but I've missed the boat on the PGA Tour, unless the Waste Management, I catch lightning in a bottle and Bobby Brown decides, oh, Troy dropped out. Matt, you got me? No? Okay.
Sorry to burst your bubble.
I'm going to drop it to 11 under out there. I'm shooting 59. Come on.
Hey, I got my son.
No, there's no shot. The lowest round I've ever shot is 64. That's as low as I've gone. So there's no chance.
That misses a playoff.
Yeah, probably, because I saw what's his face, Abakash or whatever his name is, who works with Genghis. That kid shot. I forget his damn name. I can't say it. I don't remember.
Bhatia?
Yes, Bhatia. There you go. No. It's Akshay. I was trying to mix both names together for some reason.
Does he work with Genghis? Is Genghis still even fucking around?
Uh-huh.
No.
Yeah.
Well, that won't last very long.
Yeah.
Genghis is a fucking clown.
But Bhatia, I mean, what he does really well, though, is he uses the ground force. I mean, this kid is a string bean, and he hits it a good ways.
Well, he's very talented. Very talented. There's no doubt about that. And I know he's battling. You know, he won the first event on the Korn Ferry Tour last year.
Yeah,
right? And
shot 8 under in the Monday qualifier to get in this week.
62 right down. I actually stay in Brunswick here, and it's right across the street over here. So, you know, he destroyed that Monday field. Akshay Bhatia, I think he's all.
Yeah, there you go. It is. That's what it is.
Oh, I was going to bring something about Stephen Elker. We finished early today, and I was kind of didn't get much sleep last night because I was binge watching this show called The Watcher on Netflix. Have you heard of this show called The Watcher? Creepy.
Is it good?
Fucking.
Oh, wait a second. My fiance Alyssa tried to get me into this show, and I was like, I'm not watching this show because she described it in such a way, and I didn't see the trailer. But now I'm hearing it from several people that show is a great show. So it's a recommendation, because if it is, we got to.
And you know, I'm an expert on these shows on Netflix. I spent half my life on the hotel rooms watching them, and it is fucking. It's like 8 episodes. Here's the deal: I had my alarm clock set at 5 a.m. Guess what time I fucking close the iPad. This is no
Oh
joke.
no,
Here's Bobby
3:30.
Brown's live. 2:40.
Oh, I was close.
2:40.
I've had those.
2 hours and 20 minutes, and I broke my rule. I was so tired when I woke up at 5 o'clock. I had hotel room coffee right out of the machine. Hope nobody pissed in it or anything like that. I couldn't get going. And I went to the eye doctor last week when I got hurt because I'm not seeing the ball very good from 250 to 300 yards and that kind of stuff. So they told me that it's stigmatism. So I'm trying these new contact lenses, and I've been wearing the same contacts for fucking 20 years. And I keep telling them, strengthen them, just strengthen them. And they keep throwing me into these new ones. And I put these new contacts in, and I'm like, oh, not only am I tired, but I fucking feel like I'm gonna puke right now because I was, they're a different lens. I'm off again already.
Those will get you. But have you seen Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone?
I saw the first one. I've been waiting for this for months.
Me too. How good was that first episode? That was fantastic.
I love these mob episodes. Just goes right into that fucking dispensary and strong arms of Destiny.
I mean, but my favorite part was actually when he comes back after being in jail, and then he knocks out the one dude, and all the guys pull their guns, and he's just like, "What are you gonna fucking do? What are you gonna do right now?"
You know what my favorite part was? When he ropes the chick out of the bar. And they sleep together, and she goes, "How old are you?" And he tells her he's 75. She fucking bailed.
She fucking was out of there like a light.
You think Sylvester Stallone really is 75 years old?
Yeah, no, he really is. That's why they put that in the script. Because he looks so, I mean, those doctors have done a hell of a job, and steroids are a hell of a drug as well. I mean, that guy is jacked to the nines. Unbelievable. But that's a great show. Did you see Yellowstone came back? We're in the 5th season, 2-hour premiere.
Yellowstone. I watched the first season and a half, and I don't know why I got sidetracked or off of it, but I need to go back to it. Hey, I want to back up to Stephen Alker because I came back early time, no sleep. I'm laying in bed. I'm watching golf today on Golf Central, and I did an interview with Stephen Alker. And of course, the question is, now you got fucking money, right? You just made $7 million. And they asked him, have you made any big purchases? How grounded is this guy? He goes, well, we haven't changed or fixed our kitchen in 30 years. So we're doing our kitchen right now. And they're still a one-car family, but he was pretty sure that was going to change in the off season and that kind of stuff. So
how cool is that?
I don't know his caddy's name, but every time I see him on TV, I'm like, fuck, I've caddied with that dude before. He was just, he was just a caddy that you never really paid attention to, if that makes any sense. No disrespect to him.
Just stayed out of the way. Quiet guy, probably. Out of the way.
I never really had remember, I've always said there's so many fucking good caddies out here on a weekly basis that you never will know who they are because they're just working for guys that make a nice living, make $1.5 million. But when you get paired with some of these caddies, you're like, fuck, this guy.
You made a great point, though, because think about it. Not only did Stephen Alker hit the jackpot, but his fucking caddy did too.
Dude, if he made $7.3 or $7.8 million, I'm going to be conservative and said this guy made minimum $600K last year.
Least.
On the fucking Champions
At
Tour,
least.
Dude. Yeah, how about that? What else you got? We want to roll right into the fucking. Let's expose Pat Perez.
No. Nelly Korda. I know you're dying for it. You're dying for it because I recorded a few things from that podcast that I have shared some snippets and word for word with Bobby on this whole thing, and we'll dive into that in a second. But Nelly Korda, I mean, she is my female golf crush. Like, I look at her and I'm like, man, I look at her the same way I look at Max Homa. I'm like, you two are just absolute gems out there. Creepy. Isn't it though?
That's creepy.
I was delusional for the past 2 days, but no, seriously, like I have to. So Nelly Korda, like I just love her golf game. Like that is what. Like there's nothing beyond that. It's just her golf game is so good, and her demeanor and everything, and then like coming from that family and her sister being so good. But she missed 4 months with a blood clot. Talk about somebody that. Like all of a sudden comes back and after missing 4 months, can't really find her form, and then ends up winning the Pelican Championship back to back, by the way. She won it last year too. And all of a sudden finds herself back in the world #1 spot. Like you got to be playing some fucking great golf to miss 4 months and then winning a golf tournament coming back. and all of a sudden jump right back into the #1 spot.
No shit, right? No shit. Well, she is, let's be honest, when they're all playing their best, it's her and Jin Young Ko, the Korean who's actually hurt this week too. She's been battling injuries this year. The young girl, the 19 or 20-year-old girl that is named like Akshay Bhatia, I've never heard of her before. I know she did a week or two at #1. But to me, those are the big two when they are healthy. Those are the big two. And I'm a huge fucking Lexi fan, right? Because Lexi hits it like a she finishes second again. And Lexi, the one time I told you I did an LPGA event some years back in Dallas at Las Colinas Country Club, I was working for a pretty famous Korean, and it was the first tournament back after Lexi had the big ANA deal where she got the penalty or
oh yeah,
remember? And it was her first tournament back, and I watched, we paired with her the first 2 days, and I'm like, she could make cuts on the PGA Tour. I was pretty convinced that she would randomly make a cut on the PGA Tour. So, you know what my fantasy is? It's not like a creepy fantasy or anything like that. The U.S. Women's Open is coming to this little place I know pretty good called Pebbly Beach, right? Ooh. And I keep dropping hints to her manager. And I'm like, because I think her brother Nick's on the bag, who played on tour forever, back and forth from the Korn Ferry Tour. But I'm like, man, I would like to make one fucking week guest appearance for Lexi Thompson at Pebble Beach.
That would be pretty sick.
Man, I know, it would be sick. Wouldn't it be fucking awesome? I've already
had That'd suck for her brother, but that would be sick for you.
Fuck him. Fuck him. I can help. Anyways.
Now, Greg Norman. Nelly. Yes, congratulations, Nelly. And I'm sorry we got a segue into Greg Norman, but back in August 3rd was the episode that came out. It was Bobby Brown's birthday the day prior, and you came out with the fucking news of the century that Mark King was going to be taking over as the CEO of TaylorMade. And I love that we haven't heard a damn thing for 4 months, and then all of a sudden it is becoming just on the press, hot wire, like everybody's talking about it. And what's incredible is that as part of this, I forgot his name as well, but basically the one who is running the Saudi fund for LIV Golf states that all of this he denies all of it. Greg Norman's our guy. And it just had that feeling of like Brian Kelly when he was at Notre Dame, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm Notre Dame all the way, baby. And then all of a sudden, like a month later, LSU, and he's talking with a Southern accent. Like, I feel like that same thing is about to happen because you were certain on this whole thing.
I know it. Perfect. Come on. How come we don't are we still just that small that we don't get the fucking props and nobody listens to us?
I think it's because we're a podcast and we don't have a media outlet that we're tied to yet. Like we either need to create a media outlet or, like, for instance, like the blog side of things, that once you get to a certain point, you become a mega authority. According to Google, you show up in Google News feeds and everything. So either we need to go that route or we need to team up with somebody because we have the inside source and only our audience knows, which is awesome for our audience because everybody's known about this since August. Now all of a sudden you're starting to see it. And it's like Mark King is coming in. But the question is, did Greg Norman know about this? Because it's almost like he's shell-shocked.
I ran into an agent. I talked to a good, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's like one of my best friends. But we were talking about this last week, and here's the deal. Norman's out. Norman is fucking out. And the reason why and one of the biggest reasons why he's out is because now they know that he lied to all these players on LIV saying they were never going to get, it's just lie after lie after lie. Remind me to bring up the newest lie that I found out from this agent that he brought up because it's a juicy one and it has to do with fat ass Perez, and it's a fucking good one. And I will tell you that the players are so upset. They were promised world rankings. They were promised they couldn't get suspended by the PGA Tour. So his lies have just caught up to him. But the new wrinkle is that he is out. And the only reason why Sheikh Mohammed Al Maktoum or whatever his Nasser Basur or whatever his name is, No disrespect, nothing racial there. I just don't know what his
Yeah, I
name
just
is.
don't know his name
He's
either.
making all the right political answers, right? Like he can't say anything like that because he's still the face. But the new wrinkle to the story is now Mark King is wondering if this is his best interest to get involved with the Saudis. So this agent told me that it's coming down to Mark King and a player to be named later, and they're talking to somebody else. But
Oh, I
according,
thought this was a signed deal. No,
well,
am I wrong on this?
I'm not sure if anything is signed. That I don't know. But I do
Oh.
know the done deal part is that Norman is not going to be the guy that he was last year, and he might just be a face or something like that. So that is you can bank on
There's
that.
breaking news right there,
Yeah.
because I thought when we talked about it the last time that this was a done deal, signed paperwork done, but then of course the reports about, and I believe it was Golf Week that said that they talked to Mark King back in July.
Well, yes, they
And
did. They have talked to him. He was on campus at 2 or 3 tournaments. This agent told me, and this agent told me another thing about Norman too is that it's probably going to. I should say include it into my Perez rant, exposing Perez. That's going to go down later. But did you know that they've been lying about some of these players' guaranteed or signing bonuses? And the reason this agent told me, and this agent's company has signed over 6 to 8 guys on tour, so it's coming from a good source. And I'll use this as an example. Pat Perez never got $10 million to go play. He was never guaranteed $10 million over 3 years. And the agent told me that they concocted this story because when they were fishing for other players from the PGA Tour to make the move up, they figured Norman told Pat, hey, we're going to tell them that we're paying you $10 million. We're going to give you a $10 million signing bonus or guaranteed over 3 years, however you want to phrase it, Pat, in your press conference. And they loaded Pat's lips. And the reason why they did that is because they would get other players down here that might be better than Pat. And they would think to themselves, Jesus, if Pat Perez got $10 million, what could I get, right? Could I get 20 or 25? So that is another reason this agent
so it was
that
bait,
fucking Norman's
huh?
going. So it was completely made up. Perez, but the agent was quick to tell me, hey, he fucking made $8 million
Yeah.
last year, Perez. And that's the bottom line. He did make $8 million last year. There's no doubt. And don't you love how he's like, oh, I sucked it up and I shot 70 out there on Doral on the last day and I earned my money and that kind of stuff. And it's like, I'm like, man, dude, you finished 49th out of 50 guys in individual fucking money. And who goes around saying I shot 70 on the last day? Doesn't that sound better if you're like, I shot 64 or 65 or 66 on the last day?
I just love the justifications around it all. Like, I finally did something. Like, people are ripping on me, talking about how all of a sudden I should become this amazing player because I'm getting paid all this money and everything. And it's like, no, dude, it's like, no, there's better players that could have been on the team.
You were the
that
40 individual.
And I've got nothing, by the way, I've got nothing against Pat Perez, just as a heads up here. I know you do, but we'll leave that to the very end here. But that's the whole thing where I'm sitting there going, why do you have to justify? Like, you're on a podcast justifying,
isn't that
and it's like,
though?
it is, but like, why are you paying attention to this stuff? Like, this should be like bulletin board material that you're using to motivate yourself rather than coming out and talking about how the fans need to change their opinions. It's like, no, fans are going to be fans. Fans are unfair. They're unrealistic. Like, fans are the most ridiculous. Like, I'm a fan. Like, I sit there and I'm like, yeah, you should be better. And yet, could I go out there and do that? Well, I probably could go out and shoot 70 at Doral, but that's a different story. I could also shoot 85. So, at the end of the day, it really comes down to Rory McIlroy's comments. Did you see those?
Oh man, I fucking loved it. I just
how great was
that's
that?
almost like the last. That's almost like the last nail in the coffin. And I loved how he said. And I started thinking about this. He goes, "It's because let's be honest, Matt. It's something's got to give sooner or later. If that tour keeps going." I know they're not booming. I know they went off on a high note in Miami. It was the best event of the year, and it makes sense in that team event because it's nothing.
They're not booming. They're getting 300,000 views on YouTube. That's nothing.
I don't know.
Fucking Paul brothers do 5 times as much.
You sound like me, but I loved his comment where exit stage left, and it's just about time to have an adult in the room so we can forgive each other and try and move forward and see how we're going to work with those.
That was the nail in the coffin, wasn't it?
It was done.
Yeah.
Gone. Good night.
And obviously Rory knows something there, because Rory wouldn't take that shot unless
No.
he knew
Yeah.
what you know and what
Yeah.
others. But the funny thing is that Mark King, they better hope that he ends up moving forward with this whole thing, because
Yeah.
it came across to me as like, oh God, did Mark King actually like go, shit, do I really want this?
I think he's this agent told me that he's at that point. Like, I don't know, he's a pretty, his numbers speak for himself. What he did with TaylorMade and Taco Bell and everything like that.
Unbelievable. Do you know he started off as a club,
As a
as a
sales
rep?
rep. Yeah, as a
Yeah.
rep. How's that for fucking motivation?
34 years he spent at TaylorMade, working his way up.
Outworked everybody, right? It just goes back to that pep talk I gave those kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you want to be elite at something, you just gotta you just outwork everybody, and you get your head kicked in and you keep showing up and you keep showing up, and you learn from your mistakes. And there's this thing going around social media. This guy's talking about. I'm a little off pace with this, but it motivates me, talking about when you're raising your kids and that kind of stuff. And this guy, he actually sounds like the actor on Better Call Saul, the star actor on Better Call Saul. And he goes into this spiel, and he's like, how do you think your kids learn everything? Like, if your kids, what does he say? Like, if your kids are playing on the monkey bars, how does he say? If your kids are doing something dangerous.
Oh, I've heard this guy.
Awesome, dude. He goes into like the 15-minute spiel, and I got a 5 and a 9-year-old, and I was that parent until I heard this, where my kids are on the monkey bars, and I'm like waiting for them to fall. And he's like, man, don't fuck with your kids when they're doing something dangerous. Carefully. If they fall, if they hurt themselves, that's how they learn. And when you as a parent are sitting there trying to coddle them, you're really just satisfying yourself. You're doing it yourself, so you don't have to deal with an injury. And it's a selfish thing, but everybody should listen to this.
I know exactly who you're talking about. I have no idea his name.
Yeah, no, he's a PhD in something in kids or something like that. But it just resonated with me so much. And I was telling Lori, I go, Lori, listen to this. And she's like, wow, I've never heard anybody come out and say it, but it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And that you can translate that to Mark King's journey a little bit, to where he's been, where he got his head beat in and he kept falling and falling, and he just worked his way up the ladder by doing Tom Brady stuff, right? Not getting outworked. You know me, I'm into that.
I mean, he turned around Taco Bell. I mean, his track record definitely, like, they were probably close to borderline bankruptcy when he took over, and he turned that entire ship around. I think his one saving grace is that he can come in and build that relationship with the PGA Tour that they need, and then move things forward.
And that's why, and you said it, that's why Norman's out right there, because the relationship with Norman
never going to change.
It's only going to go backwards. It's never going to go forward. But I'll say this about Mark King. I know why they're making money, because I go to Taco Bell twice a year, and it's usually at Riviera Country Club, because it's next to my hotel. And every year I get 4 tacos, and I ask for extra cheese, and I never get extra cheese. So he's smart. He's cutting corners. He's not spending the extra money on queso. He's telling
bottom
the girls
line.
in there.
It's bottom line, Bobby. You got margins, and guess what? When you get some free cheese on there,
right,
you're cutting margins.
Want to expose Pat Perez a little bit right now?
All right, so we got to get into it.
Yes.
Here we go, folks.
Yeah.
Pat Perez goes on Son of a Butch, which, by the way, I was tipped off to this by one of our audience members. They sent a message to the social media team on Instagram, and they brought it to me. They're like, what's that?
Yeah, that dude's name that's Tyler Brown is his name, right? Tyler Brown from Northern California?
It might be, yeah. Hang on a second.
Hey, Tyler, what's up? I know you're listening.
Let me pull it up here.
I'm kind of connected to Tyler Brown, because when I was caddying up there for those good amateurs in Northern California, Randy Haig and some other guys and that kind of stuff, Tyler Brown was one of the better amateur players up there, and he told me he stumbled onto our podcast.
It was Tyler Brown. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So he tipped me off to this, and so the social media team comes to me. That's why I don't know who it was, but I obviously have the login capability. So I go in, I'm looking at it. I'm like, wow, it really was Tyler Brown. But he ends up saying that Pat Perez goes on Son of a Butch. Yeah. And at the time, I thought he was calling Claude Harmon a son of a bitch, but then I'm like, oh, son of a butch. And then I don't know how he got this iHeart deal for this podcast, but man, I'm sitting there listening to it, and I'm like, the only reason, like, I got bored real quick, even in that interview with Pat, which they were touching on some very important stuff, but I started to zone out at times. I'm like, man, this is really fucking boring, if you ask me. Like, iHeart, like, they overextended themselves here. I don't know what that deal looks like. Sometimes you can actually pay to get onto iHeart as on their iHeart network and have them produce a show. I've had that conversation because I do podcasts. So, with that said, all of a sudden, I'm listening, and he says that he claims that a caddy has stolen money from him, and I know you know this guy well there, Bobby,
I do.
that has been accused of this. And I just need to say this before I'm going to turn over the mic to you, because I found it hilarious when all of a sudden it goes from the PGA Tour wouldn't do anything. He's like sitting there crying about it, right? PGA Tour, like, oh, you know, first of all, it is one person's word versus another. You want the PGA Tour to be the police, but yet you have no idea who actually stole money from you out of your wallet, apparently at your hotel or whatever, to which multiple people have access to, including your soon-to-be wife or wife at the time, Ashley Perez. But like, that would be an obvious one to me that I'm like, well, obviously. But that being said, all of a sudden, the part that got me, because my fiance worked at the DA's office in Manhattan, in New York City. She was actually wanting to go into the FBI. And when he dropped, like, this is a liar being caught in a lie.
Right.
Okay? When all of a sudden you go, PGA Tour wouldn't do anything, so I not only got the local cops involved, but I also, this is my best impersonation, by the way, of Pat Perez.
Yeah.
I also filed a report with the FBI. I lost it. I fucking lost it, because I'm like, yeah, fucking FBI is going to deal with your petty goddamn theft. All of a sudden,
that's what
we're bringing in
theft.
FBI agents, and they're going to come and find out who stole Pat Perez's $700 out of his goddamn fucking wallet. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, if you want to get caught in a lie, you just got caught in the biggest lie ever. Like, you know that your girl took your fucking money and you have a vendetta against some caddy on the tour. So, Bobby, what do you know about this topic?
Well, I know a lot. Well, I know a lot. I probably know more than anybody else, and I'll just say that. But I want to, before I get into it, I want to, well, you said it. He's the biggest liar on the PGA Tour. Always has been, always will be.
Bobby, 1 second. I told Alyssa, my fiance, this. And by the way, she doesn't know golf or anything like that, or she's just starting to learn. And I go, sweetheart, somebody on a podcast who plays on the PGA Tour just said that they had $700 or something stolen out of their wallet, and they filed a report with the FBI because the PGA Tour wouldn't do anything. She just started hysterically laughing. Absolutely hysterically laughing. She's like, that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard in my entire life.
Unbelievable. Well, let's get into it because I know the gory details that he didn't want to talk about. So let me be the one to talk about it. So
let's hear it.
First I'm going to preface it and tell you a couple stories about him and his wife to set up my theory on the whole thing, because I've heard both sides of it numerous times. But the fact is that I can tell you that Pat, for years, I was really good friends with Pat for years. We owned some racehorses together. We hung out together. And every year at Phoenix, he refused to play Phoenix because he got heckled so bad, right? He would just stay home and not have to deal with it because he's fucking soft like that. He can't take that kind of shit, right? He's not that strong.
Well, clearly, apparently, to this interview, for sure.
Well, that's fucking him, big man on campus after shooting 70 at Doral and being a big timer. So one year, this is some years ago, we were over at his house for this. And let me just tell you this: she runs the fucking family, right? She runs the fucking show. If she says jump, he says fucking how high. It's whatever she says. And for somebody that
this I know for a fact. This is true.
Yeah, you know this for a fact. Mikey knows this for a fact. We all know it for a fact. And for somebody that pretends like they're such a badass and a fucking tough guy, I guarantee you two things. She tells him what to do, and then this fucker couldn't fucking fight his way out of a fucking paper bag at 280 pounds. That I know for a fucking fact. So we're at this Super Bowl party at his house, right? And these guys get fucking fucked up drunk, and his buddies get fucked up drunk, and there's a bunch of us caddies there. There's a couple players, a couple fucking hooker bitches hanging around Ashley, and you know, there's one dude that's good friends with Pat. I'm not going to mention his name, and he is pretty belligerent drunk, and he's getting on Ashley's nerves, and they're arguing, and he's getting close to getting kicked out, right? So we're all very uncomfortable, and we want to leave, and Pat comes storming out of his fucking bedroom, and he fucking goes right up to the guy's face, and he goes, "My Rolex is fucking missing. You've been eyeballing it for years. I know you stole my fucking Rolex, you motherfucker. Get out of the house." And we're all like, what the fuck, right? So now we think these guys are going to fight, right? So they end up getting this guy out of the house. Pat's going on this rant. Well, all of us are like, check, please, we're leaving. So we all leave. So we're all talking about it all week at the golf course, right? Like, fucking this guy. And I know a couple caddies that are good friends with this guy, and they're like, hey man, this guy would never fucking do anything like that. This has to do something with fucking Ashley. So fast forward this story about a fucking year later, Pat's made some money. Ashley wants to fucking redo all the furniture in the house, right? In the, you know, in the bedroom and everything like that. So as the story goes, this guy who is very close to Pat, and I'm not going to tell you who he is, but he's probably been working for Pat maybe for 16 or 18 years, and he's very, very fucking short. He might carry a golf bag for a living. He tells the story that when they get this new chest of drawers in the bedroom, right? And they've hired somebody to, like, you know, clean out the drawers and bring in the new furniture, and this guy's helping doing that kind of stuff. And they go into Ashley's lingerie drawer, and guess what is sitting in the fucking corner back there in the lingerie drawer is the fucking Rolex that he accused one of his best buddies of fucking stealing right there. And listen to this. On top of that, he fucking double dipped because he had, supposedly the story goes, he had this thing insured and collected insurance money on it because it was, I'm surprised he didn't get the FBI involved in this whole thing. It is.
I mean, there should have been an FBI report for that petty theft.
Right. Why wouldn't you?
I mean, a Rolex still is petty theft, by the way, people.
Well, I don't know the guidelines on petty theft, but I'm starting to learn now. So apparently, you know, Pat just fucking lets it slide under the rug, and only people on the internal know. So apparently she didn't like this guy so much as that she fucking, you know, she staged this thing. So I'm going to go into this Caddie story because I know it pretty well. And I'm going to give you all the fucking, I'm going to give you all the details from the start. So this Caddie is staying with Pat Perez at a house at the Match Play in Austin. And I'm not going to tell anybody who this Caddie is, but if they do their research, they're going to be very surprised when they find out who this Caddie is, because it's not too hard to find out. So Perez is this Caddie is staying with Perez and Ashley, and I think H, his caddy, and Drew Steckel, who was his swing coach at the time, pre-Claude Harmon, right? So they do the draw. Pat's playing good golf at this time, too. He's just fresh off a win, and he's playing the best golf of his life. I think it was 2018. So they draw. Pat draws Siwoo Kim, who this guy is caddying for in the first round, right? So Ashley Perez is 5 or 6 months pregnant. So Siwoo Kim is thumping Pat Perez after 9 holes. He turns at 3 up, right? And they're standing on 10T. This woman is 6 months pregnant, and she is out there fucking drinking, right? So they roll up to the fucking 10th tee, and there's people, if you've been to the Match Play, there's people, it's right around the putting green. There's probably a couple hundred people standing on 10T, right? And she fires out at the top of her fucking lungs before Siwoo Asian hits his tee shot, and she says, "Pat, this chink is the weak link. Fuck up this," and I'm sorry to all the Asians listening to this, "fuck this slant eye up," right? And she backs Siwoo
off. I have heard this verbatim by other people that were there at the time. So you're not.
No, I'm telling you straight exactly what happened, and there's plenty more to tell you. So this goes on all the way down the fairway. You know what was it say? The chink is a weak link, Pat. The chink is a weak link. Fuck up this slant eye. Fuck up this slant eye, right? And everybody's like turning around as the story goes, like fucking cringing, like, who is this fucking bitch? So Now Siwoo Kim is a little bit rattled, right? And he turns to his caddy and he's like, that Pat Perez wife? And the caddy's like, hey, I don't know who it is and that kind of stuff, but we got business to take care of. Let's just keep it in game mode. So this goes all the way down 10. Pat wins 10, right? And then I think they have 11. They go to 12. They go to 12 this par 5. So Siwoo Kim, Pat hits first, Siwoo Kim's over, and she starts doing the same thing again. And she backs Siwoo off of this tee shot. And the caddy says to Siwoo at that time, you want me to call security? And Siwoo goes, I fucked this motherfucker up. Don't worry about it, right? So Siwoo hits one down the middle. Pat's forced to lay up. Siwoo goes after this par 5 and 2. Pat can't see it, but it just trickles over the back into the water, his second shot, but he's dropping basically on the green. So Pat, before he's hit his wedge shot, Pat doesn't know that this guy's rinsed his shot, that Siwoo's rinsed his shot. And she starts fucking yelling and screaming, it's in the water, Pat, it's in the water, fuck this chink up. So this goes on the whole way to the backside, and Pat has closed this lead down to 1 down on 17T, and Perez wins 17, so they're all square going to 18, right? And she hasn't shut up, and she's drinking for fucking 2.5 straight hours, and apparently it's very fucking uncomfortable. So they get to 18, and Siwoo being Siwoo, he bombs fucking driver down there just short of the green. Pat lays up. Pat hits a wedge into there like 20 feet. Siwoo stuffs one to about 4 feet behind the hole. Pat cozies it up, makes 4. Siwoo's got a 4-footer to win the match, right? And he's over the putt, and she just screams like Pat, like that. Backs Siwoo Kim off the fucking putt, right? And Siwoo Kim is just shaking his head. This caddy's standing next to Perez on the green, who's staying with Perez, and goes, you want to shut your fucking wife up? And Perez starts laughing and tells him to fuck off. And Siwoo runs it by about 2 feet. Pat doesn't give him the putt. Siwoo's grinding over this 2-footer. She does it again and backs him off, right? So apparently, as the story goes, they don't shake hands, okay, or anything like that. The story is that Siwoo goes back to the car, and he tells his caddy, I know that's fucking Pat Perez's wife. You better fucking take care of this. Make sure that kind of shit doesn't ever happen again. It's bullshit or whatever. He's fuming. So this caddy, they all go back to the house together, and they all are staying at the same house, right? So apparently this caddy is fucking livid, right? So he gives them some choice words about what he thought the behavior was like, and that it wasn't very professional, and maybe the word cunt came out a few times and that kind of stuff.
See you next Tuesday.
so the cunt word comes out a few times and that kind of stuff. So Perez's caddy, H, scurries this other caddy into the washroom next to the kitchen, right? Unbeknownst to them, there is a big vent, a wide open vent in the washroom where you do laundry, and it goes up into their bathroom, I think. And so this caddy is going off, that fucking cunt, and fuck this, and you told me she was a fucking cunt, and I didn't believe you, and that kind of stuff. How could she fucking behave like that? So to make a long story short, nothing happens. They don't talk like the next 2 days. Siwoo Kim goes on and wins the next match. Pat loses. He gets eliminated. Siwoo Kim takes out Gary Woodland in the third match to advance to the sweet. Wait, I got behind myself. The second day Siwoo wins, Pat gets eliminated, but this caddy, on the third day, when they all come out of the house to go golf course in the morning, Pat's vibing this caddy, right? And this caddy goes, what the fuck's going on with him? And Steckel, his coach, and H, the caddy, go, Ashley's missing some jewelry or something like that, right? And this caddy's like, what? Yeah, Ashley's missing some jewelry and whatever. So this caddy says, oh, fuck this. I'm taking a fucking Uber to the course. So he takes an Uber to the course. He says he gets to the course and he's on the driving range. And every time this caddy walks by, Perez is going to a different player pointing at him and that kind of stuff. Nobody really knows what's going on, right? So whatever. Perez leaves town. The caddy leaves the house. He goes and gets a hotel room. I know I'm rambling, but I'm getting to something here. So this caddy is off. I think the next week, the next tournament is the old Houston tournament before the Masters, right? So this caddy's sitting at home, and he's getting phone messages and text messages from his buddies, other caddies, saying, hey, Perez is saying some bad shit about you, saying that you stole money out of his wallet. And this caddy's like, picks up the phone and calls one of the guys, and he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, Perez is going up and down the range saying that this guy fucking stole $700 out of his wallet. And the caddy goes, well, now he just told one person it's $1,100. Now he's told another person $1,400. So this caddy's getting bombarded with all these with all these calls, right? So this caddy fucking picks up the phone and he calls Perez and reads him the riot act or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So this caddy apparently about 2 days go by and this caddy gets a phone call from a police officer, from a detective in Austin, right? He's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm a detective and we got a complaint that there was some money stolen from Mr. Perez's wallet at the house and that kind of stuff. And we wanted to ask you some questions. And the caddy's like, yeah, fine. As the story goes, the detective's like, hey, did you take any money out of his wallet? Were you ever in his room or anything like this? And the caddy's like, hey, fuck no, I was never in his room. I stayed downstairs. I never went upstairs to his room, and the cop's like, well, there's video cameras in the house. And the caddy's like, well, we shouldn't have much more to talk about then after you watch those video cameras, right? And he goes, yeah, but I'm going to ask you a few more questions. And he goes, do you have a cell phone? And the caddy's like, yeah, I got a cell phone. He goes, who's your provider? And the caddy's like, what the fuck? It's AT&T. He goes, well, we just find it very odd that you wouldn't, contact Mr. Perez after you heard he was these accusations, that kind of stuff. And the caddy's like, I fucking called the motherfucker like 6 times and called him every fucking name in the book and called him what a piece of shit he was and that kind of stuff. And the detective tells the guy, he goes, well, we work with AT&T and we're gonna check on that to see if those calls were made, right? So caddy's like, the caddy's like, yeah, do what you want to fucking do, and hangs up the fucking phone. So this detective from Austin calls him back and goes, okay, I'm done with this shit, man. We looked at the cameras, we looked at the phone records, you're good. We never saw anybody go upstairs. Obviously there's something more to the story, and this is not even a case that we're going to consider opening and that kind of stuff, right? So they go.
I can't wait to hear about the FBI report.
Well, I don't think it was true. I mean, that's just a made-up Pat Perez story right there. So anyway,
it's just a liar getting caught in a lie. It's hilarious.
So they get to Augusta. It's the Masters the next week, right? And Perez is causing a scene on the driving range, going up to players and that kind of stuff, and pointing at the caddy and saying shit in front of the caddy, like this guy's a fucking thief. He stole money out of his wallet, and everybody's
fill
like,
up again.
Yeah, you
Bushwood better fill spirits. Up. I mean, my God, this is juicy.
And everybody's going to this caddy going, what the fuck is going on? What the fuck is wrong with this guy? What'd you do to this guy that he's going to do that stuff? So the caddy's like, hey, he's fucking full of shit. It's a fucking Ashley Perez fucking scam. And that's what the caddy's telling everybody. So the tour, because I know in this podcast, Perez said the tour did nothing about it. Let me just tell you something. There's a lot.
Yes, no, he framed it in that light. It is that the PGA Tour, LIV Golf. By the way, he also said that this caddy is banned from LIV Golf for life, as if it was part of his contract in coming over to LIV Golf.
Unbelievable. He's unbelievable. Well, nobody's sad to see him gone. So anyways, PGA Tour officials get a hold of him at Augusta, of all places, and say, hey, your player's playing Hilton Head next week. We want to ask. So Pat went to the tour, got a statement from Ashley Perez and Pat Perez, and the tour asked him, was there anybody else in the house? And of course, Pat had a party early in the week where there's like Michael Collins, the short dude, ESPN caddy.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to say Phil Mickelson's pilot was there. There was 3 or 4 other dudes wandering around. It was a big booze fest, So they tell this caddy, they're like, hey, we want to ask you some questions about this thing. And the caddy's like, detective already contacted me and that kind of stuff. And they're like, well, we want to investigate a little more. So apparently they call this caddy in, they sit down and they have lunch with him. They start asking him a bunch of questions and that kind of stuff. And the caddy tells him exactly what happened and what his theory is on the whole deal. And he shares some past stories with Ashley Perez, and when she doesn't like somebody, the lengths that she will do to move that person out of Pat's life, basically, is what it comes down to. So this caddy is, waiting for an answer. So the tour calls him back the next morning and goes, man, you're good. You're good. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. When you see him coming, you go the other way. You stay on the other side of the driving range. You set your player up away from him on the putting green and all that kind of stuff. And not only that, they give this caddy a piece of paper to sign that says, listen, we reserve the right, even though you're an independent contractor, if you comment on this to anybody or start talking about it and it gets back to us, we reserve the right to suspend you for 30 days. So they kind of strong arm that caddy a little bit, right? Well, this literally goes on for this caddy for 4 years, right?
Bobby, quick thing here. So I said the Rolex wasn't petty theft because I felt like the watch might have been fake, but it's under $1,000, which might be why the theft started at $700 and migrated its way up to 1,100 and then up to 1,400, right? I mean, there's a lot of different things that went on there, but the Rolex would have actually not been petty theft. That would have been actual real theft.
That's like grand theft or something like that. Well, the fact is,
we're not playing a video game. This ain't Grand Theft Auto here.
Gotcha. So this thing goes on for this caddy for 3 years.
That's unbelievable.
Or 4 years. But the better part of the thing is every time that this caddy's on a driving range, and there's cops all over, right? So they go to the Players Championship. They go to the Players Championship that year, and this caddy notices that Perez is talking to a few cops that are sitting by the putting green, and he's pointing at this caddy, right? Listen to this. He's pointing at this caddy, like pointing this caddy out, right? So this caddy finishes his practice round. He goes to caddy parking, all right? He gets in his fucking car, and he notices there's a cop parked underneath a tree, just like, oh, what's a cop doing in caddy parking? You know, they're usually out on the street or on the golf course. So this caddy says, and he fucking pulls out, and the cop gets right fucking behind him. And the caddy's like, I stopped at every stop sign. I counted to 5 1,000. I did everything right. So he makes a right out of Sawgrass. The cop's on his ass, and he's like, what the fuck's this all about? He makes a left somewhere, and the lights go on, and they pull this caddy over, right? And the caddy's like, why'd you pull me over? And he's like, oh, you made a funky turn and that kind of stuff. And the caddy looks at me and goes, man, I saw you pick me up coming out of caddy parking. Why would I do something like that when you were on my ass the whole time? He goes, well, you got some ID on you, right? So the caddy gives him his ID or his driver's license and that kind of stuff. And he goes back and he goes, okay, give me a sec. And he goes back and he runs a check and that kind of stuff. And he goes, okay, you're good. You know, I'm not going to write you a ticket or anything like that. And he goes, but it's weird. Your name comes up in this state, and there's some other guys named your name, and they're not very good people. Do you mind if we take your fingerprint? The cop says. And the caddy goes, take my fingerprint for a routine traffic stop? And the caddy goes, fuck it, take my fingerprint, right? So he gives him the fingerprint and that kind of stuff. The guy goes back and runs his shit and that kind of stuff. He goes, okay, man, you can go, no big deal. So the caddy goes home and he's like, what the fuck is all that about? So he complains to the tour about this, right? And the tour, thinking that the tour might have had something to do with it. The tour was in on it, right? And the tour is like, whoever you talk to is like, no, we had no idea that happened. But the caddy's got his reservations about that. So fast forward to Charlotte that year, right? The caddy is working for somebody, and it's a tough bag, and they just missed the cut, and he's a really good player, right? And everybody goes in the locker room to clean everything out on Fridays, right? And there's always a cop at the locker room door, right? So this caddy says he's going up. He comes around the corner out of the scoring thing, and he's in a bad mood. His fucking player's in a fucking worse mood. And he says that the fat-ass Perez is sitting on the steps right there next to the cop. And when this caddy comes around the corner and walks up the stairs right by Perez, Perez looks at the cop and goes, that's the motherfucker right there, right? So the caddy's like, what the fuck? He packs all his shit up. He gets in his car in caddy parking, and a fucking cop picks him up, coming out of caddy parking, turning left, going down a thing, and the lights go on, and they fucking pull him over again. And the caddy's like, what the? And he goes, well, you know that speed limit was 35. We had you doing like 40 or 41. And the caddy's like, man, I saw you pick me up. Why would I speed, right? So they pull him over. They do the same exact thing. They check his ID. They want his fingerprint. They fingerprint him, and they fucking let him go. So this caddy went through so much fucking harassment in 3 or 4 years. And I guess it all came to a boil last year at Bay Hill, where this caddy had enough, right? Where he's like, I'm not fucking dealing with this anymore. And apparently the rumor is too that every player that this caddy worked for, when they go back in the locker room, Perez was waiting for him, and he'd corner him, right? And he'd say, hey, this fucking guy stole money out of my fucking wallet. He's a bad fucking dude. You need to fire him, right? So this caddy starts looking into a defamation of character lawsuit, which he's pretty sure he has, and he's got a pretty powerful attorney that's a good family friend. And this attorney says, man, I think you got a fucking case, but you got to get 20 caddies and 20 players to go on record on what Perez has told him. So this caddy starts asking around, and he gets about 10 of each to do that, and the other 10 don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to. They're playing pussy. They don't want to get involved in the whole scenario, right? So the caddy lets it go. So they go to Bay Hill, I guess it was last year, and this caddy's walking down. It's early in the morning. He's walking down one way. Here comes Perez with a couple people the other way, and Perez like leans into him, like gives him a little shoulder thing or something like that. And the caddy's like, don't ever fucking do that to me again. And Perez is like, you got something to say to me? And the caddy gets right in his face and goes, listen to me, motherfucker. I can't do anything here, but I am going to run into you sooner or later off fucking campus. And you're going to fucking find out how I fucking feel, right? So Perez stomps away, goes back to the locker room door where there's 3 cops, and he fucking points at this fucking caddy again, right? So now this caddy is fucking over the top. So this caddy walks to the putting green, shaking his head, and he runs into another caddy. And he goes, that fat motherfucker's signature move, doing the same shit he's been doing. And this caddy doesn't know that fucking Perez is standing behind him, right? So now there's an altercation. There's some screaming going on the putting green before the first round on Thursday, right? And this caddy's like telling him, go fuck yourself, I'll beat your fucking ass. And the other caddy walks away like, Jesus Christ, all the players have stopped. Everybody in the crowd's listening. So this caddy's like, oh, I'm going to get a fucking phone call from the PGA Tour after this, right? So, you know, caddy finishes his round or whatever. His player plays fucking pretty good. Perez shoots a fucking wad because he's mentally unstable. So he calls the tour. He says, this fucking guy approached me and charged me on the putting green and that kind of stuff. And I couldn't even get out of my own way for the first 2 hours and that kind of stuff. And the tour official asked him, you know, it's like, what happened? I won't spill the beans there. The tour official asked him, what happened? And the fucking caddy goes, this motherfucker arm brushed me. And then he went and did his signature move to the cops and that kind of stuff. I had no idea. You know, he was standing behind me, and I just told another caddy, I go, he does this every fucking week to me, and I'm fucking about had it, and I'm going to see his fucking ass off campus, and I'm going to fucking drop him, and I'm going to fucking drop him hard. And so the tour official says, listen, we're going to go over this again. When you see him, you go the other way. Just don't fucking talk to him, and he won't talk to you. And I'm like, no. And now everybody knows. And the caddy's like, I can't fucking take it anymore, man. This has been happening for 4 years. You guys haven't done jack shit for me. It's all about the player. It's not about the caddy. You know, you made me sign that fucking piece of paper. You handcuffed me, but this motherfucker's not playing on the same playing field as me. And he can say whatever he wants, and he's damaging this caddy's reputation, which ultimately is going to cost his caddy.
I mean, that's harassment.
Well, it is harassment, but the only good thing I can tell you in this whole scenario is this caddy has 200 more friends than Pat Perez has up there. So anytime Perez would say something to these guys, they go to the caddy and they're like, we don't even fucking believe this fucking piece of shit. We know all about fucking Ashley Perez and her shenanigans. Everybody knows the Rolex watch story. Everybody knows that all of his friends that, you know, he had a bunch of friends that warned Pat had a bunch of friends that stepped in.
I'm just wondering when the FBI is going to take action. Yeah. I mean, the FBI, they must have had a great laugh because, and granted, it's a laugh that never happened, folks, because when somebody lies, they get caught up in their lie. And when you all of a sudden, I mean, on that interview with Claude, I mean, there was no hesitation. I'm surprised that iHeart didn't edit that out because, like, that is, if you're going to lie, that is the worst lie you could bring up in that scenario. Like, you are just completely a liar at that point when you say, I filed a report with the FBI.
Right.
It's incomprehensible to me. I'm sitting there going, wait a second.
Who says something? Why? Whose engine is wired like that they just make up something like that? Is that to make them feel important? Is that to make them feel important? Is that to make them feel important?
Well, and then he doubled down, right? So he doesn't just double down on the FBI, but he doubles down on the fact that now the PGA Tour didn't do shit. PGA Tour sucks. PGA Tour this and that. Like, he goes on to say that, like, PGA Tour didn't have my back.
I'm going to interrupt you. This is the same dude that said the PGA Tour was the greatest place to play in at Riviera that year before he went to LIV, right? So that's the kind of person.
Well, and then you got Claude. Literally, and that's the one thing that I can give to Claude is that he did ask him that question. He goes, but he did it in such a softball way that it pissed me off because it's like, dude, if you're going to ask a question, so he literally asked me, he's like, so Pat, like, you know, what happened with when you ended up having that press conference and said that, you know, you were all PGA Tour and everything. He gave him a softball. He teed it up for him as to like, oh, what was the context behind that? And you hear Pat go, well, I didn't know I was going to be on LIV Golf yet. So, of course, I'm going to be all pro PGA Tour and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then he goes on to say that, like, of course, I said that I would take that opportunity if it presented itself. I would absolutely jump on board with LIV Golf, blah, blah, blah. No, Mikey Perez actually was the one on this podcast who said that if his brother got an offer, that he would jump ASAP. And Pat never said that in public, never said that to the media. There's not a damn interview that anybody's going to pull up that he actually made that statement. But I mean, it was such a softball, but he skirted around that. He skirted around a lot of things. Like, this was not a good interview. This was like a buddy trying to like tee up things for his buddy who he teaches. And it's like, at the end of the day, I've said that 3 times on this episode, and I hate that saying, but I'm sitting there going, at the end of the day, Pat Perez literally pawned himself to where you can't get around the fact that, like, when you lie about one thing, and then you literally bring up something that is so unfathomable, the FBI's not taking your report. Like, not over petty theft. I'm sorry. FBI is dealing with serial killers. They're dealing with people that are in money laundering. They're dealing with fraud. Like, they're not trained to be like in fights and like tased and so forth and dipped underwater. Like, it's not like when I talked to my fiance about it, she's like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. She's like, do you know what they go through in order to become an FBI field agent? Like, they're not going to take that.
Oh, my God. And I think this caddy was bent, too, because this caddy I think this caddy doesn't talk to Claude Harmon, but he was bent that, you know, that Claude Harmon would even – and Claude Harmon's just a big fucking phony, right? The name of the show is Son of a Butch. Should that tell you anything right there?
It does. You know? It's just – you know, somebody who really wants attention in media is what it comes down to.
Yeah, he's what I call
I don't know Claude, so I'm not gonna.
I know him very well. We were buddies for a long time, and he's a look at me guy. Thinks that he's in person. He just wants to be important, right? And he's got the rep. You know, his nickname out here is.
He's in the shadow of his dad.
Yeah, so his nickname out here is Claude the Fraud, and I'll tell you, even his own dad is like, well, I can tell.
Well, you did on a couple episodes back. You're like, I saw Butch, and I'm like, what about Claude and his dad? And you're like, Butch was just like,
fuck him. It's his son. I'm sure he loves him. He's gave him all these big time back. Listen, if Claude was a teacher, why does Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson and all these guys go see Butch when something's really broken, right? Why do they get away from Claude? Because he's just somebody to travel with, who's got a good sense of humor, yada 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 yada.
What I love is the pendulum that guys have moved away from Butch, and all of a sudden you see them all coming back. Everybody's back to working with Butch. You got Ricky Fowler working with Butch. You got Jason Day coming back to Butch. You've got not Jason Day. Sorry, Gary Woodland has come back to Butch, and like they're working on stuff again, and it's like.
Harold Varner would dip in and see him. Adam Scott will dip in and see him every once in a while. When you need a tune-up and something's broken.
That was the biggest controversy in the world, by the way. When Phil was with Rick Smith, and it was a hush-hush at Butch's Academy when I was there. Oh, guys, nobody can talk about it. Phil's coming in.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is Phil coming in? Well, because he needs to actually fix something.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, because the other guy fucking can't do it. So let's fast forward. You know, let's keep exposing Pat Perez.
There was another great topic that I'm going to tee you up on, because from Claude Harmon to me, you know, I'll tee it up for you since he kept teeing it up for Pat. He asked Pat, "What's the whole deal between you and Phil?"
Fuck.
And sure enough, Pat's like, I'm not going to talk about it again. I've already talked about it. And, you know, Phil crossed me, and Phil knows that he crossed me, and he crossed the line. I'm not going to talk about it because I've already talked about it. I'm like, I don't recall like an interview where he's talked about it.
No,
But
no.
that
Go
being
ahead.
said, he kind of opened up the door for this conversation, which I asked you. I'm like, do you know what happened? Because I've heard the story behind this
Right,
from
right.
people within his camp. And I'm like, Bobby, why don't you go ahead and take this one from here?
So I can't. We talked about it earlier, and you put the kibosh on me giving you the specifics,
We
the
can't
details.
get into
I know. I
details, but
fucking want to. I want to
you can
so
give
bad.
the
Let's
overall
just.
storyline.
I'm going to give the overall story. So 2019 Liberty National, first playoff event. Perez plays good somewhere, squeaks in. Him and Lefty, Arizona State for the semester. Pat was there or whatever. Obviously, they've been on tour forever. Blah, 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 blah. Pat Perez's signature move is he's friends with somebody he can get something from, but as soon as they walk away, he's shitting all over, right? That's been his signature move for 22 years out here. So apparently Perez, Lefty, Perez's wife, the skank Ashley, and Andrew Getson, I think Andrew Getson, the instructor, they're staying in a house or a condo by Liberty National. So it's early in the week and they got the good red wine flowing, right? And they're getting pretty toasted.
Phil does love a good red wine.
So I can't give any specifics, but Pat apparently pulls the ripcord early because he's got an early tee time. He wants to play practice round the next morning. Lefty and Ashley and I think Andrew stay up later and they keep boozing. And apparently the story is that Phil, how do I say this, man? Did something crude or did something.
Let's put it this way. Phil and Ashley were left by themselves.
Yes, Phil and Ashley were left by themselves.
There might have been a proposition that was proposed.
Yes, some kind of proposition was proposed.
But what's weird, so here's the thing. I'm hearing this, right, from you as to this, some of the details. And what's hilarious is on the podcast, Pat goes into the fact that Phil knew that I knew, and that I want to say the words correctly because I don't want to get this wrong. So Phil knew that I knew, and Phil still decided to cross the line.
Yeah. Well,
so
I'm going to say something that you don't want me to say, but I'm going to say it anyways because it's out there on social media. The rumor going around is that Phil dropped a dick pic to her, right? A dick pic, which we kind of on the internal know it was a little. The story was a little more aggressive than that.
Might have been in real life versus over a cell phone.
Yeah. Okay. So, especially when they're sitting at the table. So apparently this happened, right? But the kicker to all of us out here is that it didn't come to Perez's attention until 2 or 3 weeks later. Ashley told him this story, right? Which we all know that if I was in a house with Lori, and I'm not going to use you as an example, and one of my buddies was there, and I pulled the ripcord early, and one of my buddies made this pretty vulgar proposition or whatever, you know what I mean? Fucking Lori's running into the bedroom and waking me up and telling me immediately to beat this fucking dude's ass and where's the fucking here and that kind of stuff. So something happened.
Alyssa would have just absolutely beat somebody's ass. She would have just beat the shit out of somebody, and and then she'd come back and tell me how she beat the shit on somebody.
Yeah, bartender from Manhattan. They gotta do that.
You don't fuck. She's half Italian, half Greek. You don't fuck with her. She will mess you up.
You better remember that the next 50 years, mister.
Oh, dude, trust me, do I ever.
So that's what when we all heard the story, and I got the story firsthand from somebody that, let's just say, could have been there. And when we all got the story, we're like, how the fuck does somebody not tell their husband this until 2 or 3 weeks later? So something churned in between there. But you know what the beauty, you know what the beauty of all of this is to all of us that don't like Pat Perez? He just sliced his own fucking throat on the LIV Tour. And now
not just that, but he goes on this podcast and opens up all these can of worms.
That's what we're all talking about right now this morning, is the fact that this fucking guy is so fucking, for a guy that's self-proclaimed fucking smart and witty with one-liners and comebacks, he's so fucking stupid. He doesn't realize that he just butchered his own career, and he's on the clock now for LIV. Because what is the LIV Tour about? It's about Dustin Johnson and it's about Phil Mickelson. Who do the people come to see? Yeah, a little Cam Smith and a little DeChambeau. They're not coming to see fucking anybody else. And if they pay Lefty $200 million, and stupid ass just goes on the record, and let's just say it, this is another fabricated, concocted story that him and her have been doing for years when they don't like somebody and they think they're above everybody else. And that's my whole take on the thing. But he's on the
But
clock.
he opened himself up, Bobby. Like, he brought up these stories. He made them relevant. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And then, by the way, he shat on Colt Knost and the Subpar podcast.
Well, he sure didn't shit on him when he didn't shit on him when he was doing the podcast.
No, because he goes, "Oh, they cut out 30 minutes of that podcast episode where I went into detail. I was saying everything. And, you know, those guys, I told them, don't fucking cut it. Don't fucking cut it. And what do? They fucking cut it." Well, guess what? You just reopened an entire like you opened Pandora's box. Now we get to talk about it. Whatever details we have, guess what? We get to share it because you decided to open this all up. But this was something that was buried. We would have never talked about this outside of his interview.
It was hush hush. It was hush hush for a long. He is so fucking. Do you not think it's any coincidence? How much money has this guy cost him over the years? Because he gets fired from every club manufacturer because of his mouth. Do you know that his last
he's not allowed to go to Scottsdale National anymore.
Well, well, of course he's not, but Bob Parsons was the greatest thing in the world for the first year and a half or 2 years, right? When they signed him. Did you know that these players' contracts, like an average contract for an average player in Pat's scenario is probably $250,000 club contract for whatever you got to play, and then you can get a ball shoe glove and a bag and that kind of stuff. Did you know that every manufacturer that he's had to deal with, they paid him below the minimum, right? And I found out from the same agent buddy of mine, his last year with PHG, and an average is $250 for a guy like that. They were paying him $75,000. They said, "This is your last year. We're going to give you 75 grand. You're out." He's gone through umpteen fucking agents because of Ashley. Nobody wants to fucking work for the guy.
Did you see his house, Bobby? Did you see like he's I hate to say this because it makes me feel bad. I'm like, this poor dude is over his head. He fucking made this beautiful place out of Silverleaf. Yeah. And it's gorgeous. But even in like finding out details around it, I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. Like this guy's retirement through the PGA Tour, which by the way, I would love to find out.
I know.
Because
it's big money.
Are those guys still getting their retirement, their pension?
They're just suspended, right? They're just suspended. That doesn't have anything to do
because he's got apparently a pretty big pension.
Hey, you know what I was thinking too is Lefty's moved down to that Michael Jordan down in Florida, right? And he's playing out of Jordan's place at the Grove and that kind of stuff.
Phil is,
yeah. He's spending a lot of time down there. They're building a house down there. He's getting into those money games with Jordan.
He wants to get out of California. He wants the tax-free.
Yeah, he probably needs the money. I mean, honestly, fucking A.
All those reports, Alan Shibnuck. I mean, holy shit. I mean, talking about the amount of debt that he's in, gambling-wise. The Augusta story.
I've seen his song and dance. I've been connected to people that he's been firing with and that kind of stuff. And it wouldn't be surprised me if he got himself into a hole because gambling is an addiction. Take it from me, I know.
Oh, yeah, he's never going to stop.
It's just like drugs or anything else. It's a fucking addiction. You can't fucking say no because it's some kind of fucking rush. I've been there before.
That's why we put $5 on top 10.
But I was thinking not only did he slice his throat with LIV because he just butchered, he just came out with this concocted story and butchered their. Honestly, Phil's probably a bigger draw than DJ. People want to, you can say DJ's the best player in the world when he wants to be, that's for sure. But DJ ain't won 50 or 60 times, and he's won fucking 2 majors. One of them was the November fucking Masters, but he'll never have the fucking career that Lefty had. And we all know if Tiger doesn't come around, Lefty wins 120 fucking times. He's probably got fucking 14 or 15. 14
oh, Tiger took away a lot of winnings from Phil.
So much. But he also put a lot of money in Phil's pocket too with purses. But I was thinking this too. I go, not only is he going to get buried now, the LIV people aren't going to be happy, but now Lefty's out there swinging with Jordan all the time, gambling. he's probably gonna get axed from the fucking Jordan thing at some point too, if Phil starts getting really close with MJ, you know, because I played a bunch of rounds with MJ before with DJ and that kind of stuff. And I will tell you one thing about MJ, he's had his share of gossip go around him, and you can just tell he's not the kind of guy that fucks around with people like that. You know what I mean? He doesn't like those loudmouth motherfuckers. And Perez will tell you
that is surprising that Pat Perez is under that umbrella.
Well, can I tell you something? He went and got that umbrella. I know the story. They never approached him for shoes. He just happened to get MJ's number one day, or ran into MJ and say, "Hey, can I get some shoes?" And now he's made it look social media wise like he doesn't get paid from MJ. And it's not just him. It's Keegan Bradley's probably getting paid, and Harold Varner's probably getting paid, but there's Luke Donald, there's Camilo Villegas, there's a bunch of guys down there that play with Jordan that anytime a new shoe drops, they just get boxes in there. Camilo was telling me last week, we were talking about shoes, and he's like, bro, everything's done. I got fucking 15 or 20 pairs come. So that's the program that Perez is on. He's not fucking compensated. He's not getting anything for the fucking swoosh on the front of the bag. He had that put on himself so he could be Mr. fucking important.
Well, did you know that Jordan and Varner had a conversation about LIV Golf, and Michael didn't want him going to LIV Golf, but now he's a little bit more like accepting of it, apparently.
Yeah, gotcha.
So he's kind of letting him do his thing. But yeah, he kind of warned him against doing it, and that the backlash and everything. Yeah, there was a whole saga about that. But man, I'm glad we got to the bottom of the FBI.
That was all for our fan Tyler Brown in Northern California.
Tyler Brown,
because he reached out and wanted to hear the.
Is it Tyler or Taylor? Tyler.
No, it's Tyler. It's Tyler Brown. He was kind of a famous, really good amateur up in Northern California that won some tournaments, that kind of stuff.
Let's give him a shout out real quick. Shout out to you, Tyler Brown.
He stumbled onto our podcast, and I dropped some names like John Ellis and guys from Northern California that I played with, and he reaches out to me via Instagram, and he's like, "Man, I hadn't heard that name, and I've never met the guy. I wouldn't know him if I saw him. I'm sure, we cross paths in NCGA amateur stuff and that kind of stuff. But it's like, it's funny how you develop a relationship with somebody via social media that you really don't know. So that was for you, Tyler. There's plenty more of that too. But
I mean, that's fantastic stuff. To tip us off to that, I mean, that has created the back end of this entire episode. And I couldn't be any more happy of just hearing all of this, because when I listened to that, man, Bobby, like,
what a clown.
You learn in sales over a period of time how to read people, and you get to learn like how to read people that are just bullshitting you. Right. And like that entire interview, I'm like, wow, this dude's really insecure, and is bullshitting people right now because he's insecure. He doesn't really know. Like, that's the thing though. And everybody around him knows that she runs the show. She's got the hand in the pocket. She's the one that makes all of the moves. She's the one that has split the family apart and so forth. Like, won't go into detail there, but that is.
We didn't even touch on that. We didn't even touch on Mike and Pat's mom and dad, who never even get to see their. I don't even know how many kids he has. Jesus Christ, is she pregnant again? She looks like she weighs 220 pounds in the pictures I saw of her. She might have another one coming. Boy, this motherfucker's going to run through that fucking 8 million. It's probably already fucking gone, to tell you the truth.
Well, it probably went to Chanel and Louis on that very first trip. Remember?
I don't think she's classy enough to buy that stuff. Doesn't she buy everything?
No, she went. Well, it was a lot of purses. I mean, they do love purses, but that being said, I have nothing against the luxury lifestyle, but I will say this. When you go on a podcast and you are going to all of a sudden spill the dirt, so to speak, and you're going to hold back all the details behind like all the scenarios and everything. Yeah. One, you're hiding something. You're hiding shit. And then you start to bring up lie after lie. It's like, yeah, you're full of shit, bro. Like, no doubt. And it is funny because it reminds me of the time that our head of content is at a restaurant in North Scottsdale, and guess who's there? And guess who can't keep his eyes off of him because he's wearing his pull hook hat?
So you think that
they listen to the podcast?
Yeah,
100%.
Because this was Mikey was your partner forever. So
Bobby, the first person that has ever blocked me in my entire life is Pat Perez. Pat Perez blocked me the first week into the podcast because Mikey was the co-host. So he blocked Pull Hook, he blocked me personally, and he blocked Mikey. And when I told Mikey, he was just like devastated. He's like, no. He's like, I'm trying to like rebuild with him and everything. And it's just like, it's devastating. And it's like, dude, how are you going to do that to your own brother? To where you're all of a sudden, your brother's got a nice endeavor, and all of a sudden you're just going to shun him? Like, that's fucked up.
You know, I think it's pretty sad that she fucking makes, you know, she brings her fucking trailer trash parents in and whacks out Pat's fucking parents with kids and everything like that.
Well, that's what's funny. At the restaurant, it wasn't Perez's parents that were there. It was her parents that were there. And like, but apparently Pat couldn't take his eyes off of the goddamn hat. He stared at the goddamn hat and just kept staring at him. He's like, and our head of content's wife is like, you should go get a picture with him. He keeps staring at us.
Okay, we got to wind it down. I got A10 Pro Am tomorrow. What else you got?
You do.
Everything
That's
else
it, Bobby. I mean, you listen. I gave you the stage.
Yeah.
You absolutely killed it. You gave us so many great details around this poor caddy that has been harassed, and really the defamation. We should get to the bottom of this because there for sure was some harassment going on there. And
there's no doubt. Everybody knew about
unbelievable.
it. Not a day went by that everybody didn't just fucking shake their heads. And it's so funny. You would look at other players and that kind of stuff, and they're like, God, is this guy really fucking going at this? Is this guy really going at this fucking guy again? Who even fucking gives a fuck, to tell you the truth? We're trying to win golf tournaments, for Christ's sake.
Maybe this should be Pat Perez's FBI report. Maybe that's what this episode should be called, because I'm still up in arms about the whole entire FBI report. That one just absolutely, that one destroyed me. I laughed for maybe 30 minutes. Like, I couldn't stop laughing as to how ridiculous that is.
Well, when you sent it to me, I started busting out in tears. I couldn't stop laughing for like fucking 10 minutes. I'm like, FBI? That's like for serious shit there.
Yeah. Like, you
even said, I'm surprised he didn't go to Trump with his relationship to Trump and that kind of stuff. Why wouldn't you? Anyways, I got an early Pro-Am. I hope I help.
All right.
I hope I help everybody.
You get in there. You rest up tomorrow night because of the early Pro-Am. And you and Troy, you guys get out there because, man, I got to see a good old top 25 out of you guys to this week.
We're going to try and win this motherfucker, my man.
Let's go fucking get it. Sea Island. What a great spot.
I'll see you next week for the rundown.
Sounds good. See you.
Have a great night, buddy. See you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Season 2 of the Pull Hook Golf Podcast. Make sure to hit subscribe and go to www.pullhookgolf.com for more information.